If you don't know already, Neil Breen is an independent filmmaker with an ever-growing cult following, due to his films being, well, bizarre and not particularly good, but they are incredibly entertaining. All of his films see Neil playing the lead, who is always the only person that can make a difference against the injustices dished out by corporations and politicians. He is always brilliant at everything and always somehow winds up with some sort of superpower. Twisted Pair mixes this up by having Breen playing twins, so we get double Breen. They both have superpowers, you see, because they were kidnapped by a giant white floating Patrick Stewart head and then transformed, in the film's own words, into humanoids that are also AI, I think. He mentions artificial intelligence about 10 times during the intro. I saw the film and I'm still confused. The Breenius himself plays Cade and Kale Altair, one sporting the wonderful mane of hair we've grown accustomed to, and the other sporting a black hoodie and the hilarious fake beard that makes him look Amish. When Space Patrick Stewart took them away to make them humanoid AIs, Kale was eventually let go, which forces him to become a vigilante as he deals out justice in his own way, whilst Cade works for the Agency and helps prevent disasters and terrorist activity because he's practically a god. Here's a clip.
Then one day it all changed. There was a bright light in the sky and time stood still. We were both selected. The pure majesty of nature.
Programmable virtual reality, the corrupt version.
A limitless digital universe, connecting all shared virtual reality. Digital tribes.
The film was shot mostly at night and clearly on a university campus, with one scene in particular intended to be a restaurant, which is clearly the dining area for students. When not within the university grounds, or in what I assume to be Breen's home, the picture is shot entirely on a green screen that is then superimposed onto stock footage he's purchased or an incredibly low-res image, which probably makes up about 70% of the film. One shot in particular involves a conversation between Cade and Kale. The background is in low quality, but it's not a deal breaker. However, when the shot changes to a different angle, a profile of Cade, the background doesn't change. It's in fact the same image. The audio is also inconsistent, with occasional clipping being heard. A good example of this is the explosion sound effect. Due to the small cast, we see the same actors portraying different roles, one of whom has to wear a fake moustache to hide this fact. The fake moustache, however, is so poor that the tape holding it down is constantly reflecting the light used, which in turn makes it look as though he's glued tin foil onto his upper lip. It wouldn't be so bad if this moustache was only used in this one scene, but alas, another character also wears it for reasons that escape me. The film is absolutely nonsensical and barely has any kind of structure to it. One in particular scene sees Breen seemingly trying to caress stock footage of an eagle, which is credited as Astro Eagle. This scene is repeated twice and others are repeated up to at least 3 times. Another strange moment sees him asking the main villain to tell him more about his plan before he immediately leaves. Speaking of the villain, our first introduction to him sees him comedically fondling a bowl of diamonds. His scarf then changes multiple times in an awful effect before he summons a sexy stripper fairy that just stands next to him and does absolutely nothing. To make the scene all the funnier, the villain has his voice pitch lowered to make him more intimidating. Unfortunately, this means we can barely understand a word he's saying, and if it wasn't perfect already, when the character's in another location, the actor portraying him is completely different. At one point I started to question whether or not Breen was finally in on the joke, similar to Tommy Wiseau, and that this was purposely made poorly. But as the film went on, I began doubting that, as I don't want to believe anyone could intentionally create something this poorly. Unfortunately, no laptops are used by our protagonists, nor are any destroyed, in what was the biggest surprise of the evening. When Cade walked into a room full of PCs, the audience became restless with anticipation. I generally don't want to ruin too much of the film here. There's a ton of wonderful moments that I haven't even touched upon. This film has everything everything you want from a Neil Breen film. Awkward pauses, bizarre creative decisions, bad acting, bad effects, bad camera work, poor editing, a love interest that's so much younger than Neil Breen, stock footage, stock music, and Neil Breen running and sneaking around like he's Solid Snake, despite the fact he has already stated that Cade is invincible. I saw Twisted Pair at the Prince Charles Cinema in London, and I have to admit, it's possibly one of my absolute favourite cinema going experiences, with audience members laughing wildly and actively riffing on the film. It was like being a part of an episode of Mystery Science Theatre. Personally, I'm an advocate for people shutting the hell up during a film, but this time it actually only enhanced the movie. Do not in any way, shape or form watch this on your own. Either see it at a screening like I did or get a group of friends over. It's one of the funniest films I've seen all year, and while his films are objectively bad, they're equally entertaining with friends. And Neil Breen clearly has a serious passion for his work, which I find rather admirable if I'm honest. Neil, you're crazier than a box of frogs, but damn is your insanity entertaining. Twisted Pair gets multiple Neil Breen's Caressing an Eagle out of 10.
I'll be right here.